Hello dear friends, how are you? Welcome. Thank you for joining me here today. I'm Arith Härger, and on this video I'll have a different approach than what is usually normal at this channel. As you know it, not all of my videos at this channel are purely academic, as there's also quite a considerable amount of subjects which are turned to the spiritual sphere, as it were. Some of these videos have also been my own interpretations or experiences, but those are fewer in number. However, I know many subscribers of this channel. I've read your comments. Well, many subscribers are deeply spiritual persons, and so I've also noticed your concerns in terms of how things have been developing in terms of spirituality, especially in the so-called Western civilization or Western society, of which many of us here are part of. Some of you, quite a few actually, were even more concerned given my statement at the beginning of that previous video concerning the witch's crossroads, in which I deliver a sort of prophetic message at the beginning. In a way, I wasn't sure how without sounding completely mental. However, to my pleasant surprise, you took it well and have also shared your thoughts on it. But that was last year, I believe, warning you about the 3 years to come. And now I've noticed this year, 2024, that you are returning to that video to look into that particular message and my words, given the state of things going on in this world right now, especially the military crisis and the political tensions of the last decade, whose negative aspects have been surfacing in a more noticeable, in a more concrete way these past few months. And if you are not aware of which political tensions I'm talking about, well, congratulations, little one. Enjoy your childhood, because it won't last forever. Anyway, I would like to try to give some reassurance somehow, because I see quite a lot of people are very anxious about our timeline, historical events, and with good reason. And mind you that I'm not going to tell you to not be afraid or don't be anxious about it or don't be worried, because not only I'm no authority in these matters, and I really just want to give you a little bit of my perspective, but indeed you should worry very much, because when people are worried about something, anything, that pushes them to take action in order to stop being worried. And we definitely need to take action in order to prevent, or at least to minimize as much as possible, any harmful aspects the state of things right now may bring to our life and the lives of future generations. And picking from there, mind you that even though it seems indeed, unfortunately, that things are shaping into becoming the terrible outcomes that I've foretold in the previous message in that other video I've mentioned, I don't see such visions and dreams that I have had as some sort of prophecy, or indeed I don't think I have the ability to see the future. I think and see such images and dreams of mine as just warnings, right, of what may come if we let things develop in a way that may lead to that. And because it is warning only, hopefully, of what may happen, there's always hope, because there's always a choice, and there's quite a bit of people in this world right now fighting to prevent such outcomes. And I'm not just talking about in spiritual terms, but also people actively engaging in acts of diplomacy, manifestations, activism, educational talks, etc. So take heart, as much can still be prevented if we act in a way that may minimize the very worst outcomes. And sometimes, for many of us, it isn't within our power to change things, even though there's always something we can do, surely, even if it seems so little and so insignificant. But change starts from there, from the daily expressions we choose to have towards the world. But it is important to remember that many of us are born within certain life's conditions, not of our making and not by choice. And so the power we have isn't as great as others who have more privileges and luck and more influence. Sometimes all we can do is to try, and try we must. Even if we fail, at least we have tried. At least we try to do something, and that's a lot better than doing nothing, absolutely nothing, right? Because even if we fail, our efforts, one way or another, may bring a positive outcome, and others may take our example and eventually succeed. So sometimes all we can do is trying. So don't feel too bad and powerless, or feeling that you are failing for not doing more. Sometimes, indeed, all we can do is to try, is trying, right? It's not like what Master Yoda said, do or do not, there is no try. No, it's not like that at all in the real world, you overgrown, coked-up lizard. Most people are not born with the privilege of having magical powers and shooting lightning from our fingers. Sometimes all we can do is indeed to try. And well, before carrying on with this video, I would just like to take the opportunity very briefly to give a special thanks to all of my patrons, past and present, who have helped me quite a lot in my life, and their support keeps me and this channel going. I still believe that people should have free access to information, and I mean, YouTube has been a great platform to deliver that information for free, but that has only been possible for me and in this channel because of the monetary help of my patrons. So to all of you, remember that my patrons are the reason why I'm here, I'm still here, delivering information to you for free. And I too have taken some risks and sacrifices in life, and as you know, this year I have decided to abandon my previous works and jobs to fully dedicate myself to the independent research I present here at YouTube, as well as to dedicate myself to my experimental solo music project. And sometimes we risk and we fail, and that's how things are. But at least we risk it, right? We try it. And things concerning YouTube and my patron aren't that good. So there's the possibility that I may no longer be able to continue with this work in the future. However, that's a talk for later, don't worry. I mean, my patrons already know what's going on. The thing is, one cannot simply rely on patronage and on YouTube alone. I took the risk, I took the risk, but in order to survive, one must find other ways of income, and the risk I took was or has been calculated, and this was a possibility, obviously, so I'm well aware of that, and I'm well aware of the consequences. But worry not, I'll be here for as long as it is possible, and this is indeed a talk for later, probably for next year. Anyway, a very special thanks to all of those who have supported me and this channel over the years. Thank you for your kindness, support, friendship, and love. Now, my dear friends, let's have a talk, if you please. Well then, if you are a person concerned with spirituality, without a doubt, you have noticed how things have been developing in the world in terms of spirituality. Things seem a little bit crazy and out of hand, as if some sort of chaos magic has shaped into a massive amoral entity which is leading people into a collective state of psychosis or something like that, whatever. I've always advocated for spiritual freedom, and that hasn't changed and won't change, because I do believe people need the freedom to experience and express what better calls to them in spiritual terms. So for too long, we have lived in societies where the spiritual has been either suppressed or destroyed. And within societies, a fear was grown towards the spiritual, demonizing everything that slightly doesn't go in line with the agreed upon beliefs of religious authorities, which have forced us to believe and follow their own ideologies. We do need spiritual freedom to follow the things that best fit into our state of existence, and each person is built differently. We are all different, and that's the beauty of this diversity of thoughts and expressions, because we get the opportunity to experience the spiritual in so many different ways and share the experiences and knowledge with people, with one another. What we mustn't do is to gatekeep spirituality and force people to only believe or only follow what we think to be the right path solely based on our own experiences. When it comes to spirituality, there's a multiplicity of choices and experiences, and we have to allow people to live that under their own existential conditions, because as we are built differently and there are as many perceptions as there are minds and thoughts in each of us, the spiritual will always be experienced in a multitude of ways. And that doesn't mean only some are right and others are wrong. It doesn't mean any of that at all. It only means that each of us will experience the spiritual in our own different ways. And for as long as such experiences bring about an individual and collective state of happiness and sense of fulfillment and peace, it's all that matters, right? No one is in need to be spiritually saved or to have some other worldly reward for eternity. What people need is right here, right now, while we live and get to experience life all around us. What we need is to live. What we need is to experience. However, everything has its limits, I think. Even when it comes to spiritual freedom or freedom of any sort. Freedom becomes meaningless when it negatively affects the other, as when somehow it imprisons or enslaves another just so we can do things the way we want. And at this moment, in spiritual terms, spiritual freedom has led into a state of complete disregard for the spiritual and for the sacredness of the spiritual. We have reached a point where everything is spiritual and everyone offers us some sort of spiritual coaching, to the point that spirituality has become something banal, a cliche. Everything is spiritual to the point that nothing is spiritual anymore. It's like when we find just a beautiful pebble, I don't know. It's unique, it's special, until we find a sea of equal pebbles, and all of a sudden our pebble has become trivial. And the banality of it is foul somehow, right? It is tainted, repulsive even, because it no longer means anything. I think this is what is somewhat happening with spirituality at the moment. It has become so trivial that it is no longer important. It has become a banality, which leads us to roll our eyes as we daily see more and more of the same. In spiritual terms, everywhere we turn to, there's hundreds of thousands of different people making the same tarot readings, for instance, the same type of talk, the same words, the same approach, presenting things and themselves in the same way. Loads of people with the same rune readings, the same astrology type of talk, everyone selling spiritual coaching, and always the same type of talk over and over again. And mind you, I'm not against people making money with these types of services, as everyone is obviously trying to make a living and surviving, right? Everyone is trying to survive. I'm just not comfortable, not only with a lot of lies to make these services more legitimate and appealing, of course, but for the case I'm trying to express here, I'm not comfortable with the copy-paste state of things in spirituality, as we have so much of the same and so many people that are now priests and priestesses and spiritual coaches and whatnot, that spirituality has become something deeply insipid. People have become so unimaginative, following the same limited expressions of the spiritual, capitalizing the spiritual. Everyone is selling the same stuff. Everyone is using and buying the same things, the same types of incense, candles, oils. Everyone is asking for the same types of services on spells for love and spells for money. Spirituality has become a stereotype, and insipid, unimaginative, dull nothingness. The thing is, in my perspective, of course, I've said this about witchcraft in the past, and I'll apply it now to spirituality as well. spirituality isn't meant to be comfortable. It's meant to be liberating. And indeed, people need the freedom to express themselves in whichever way they deem to be the best in a spiritual way, because the aim, I think it should be liberation through the freedom of expression. To have the freedom to be artistic, to be imaginative, to be curious, the freedom to explore, the freedom to dream and express those dreams in an imaginative and creative way. I mean, that's it, right? Spirituality should be creative, and to have the freedom to create and express ourselves in a creative manner. But now, looking all around us, it has led into a point that it's just more of the same, and it seems most people don't want that freedom to be creative, but want just another trivial thing that can easily be reached and even bought, that can be consumed, used, and thrown away. And it's not just that, mind you, it's also so many cases of everything literally becoming spiritual, to the point that even now cartoon characters like Pokemon and such can be worshipped and used in a spiritual way, which in a way I think I get it, because the freedom to express ourselves in a spiritual way indeed allows us to use anything that calls to us, and we are more mentally, things that we are more mentally in line with, to channel our spirituality towards something beneficial. And indeed, looking at traditional folk magic, for instance, anything can be a trinket, a magical object, a way to channel the spiritual. We even see this deeply in animism, of course, as an average object can become a talisman, can become a medium or an intermediary utensil to connect us with the spiritual. I do get that. And I think, I mean, even in that, there are limitations to that as well, despite the seemingly limitlessness of it. And there are deeply rooted conceptions that permit us to understand what can be sacred and why it is sacred, or why it has become a utensil for spiritual uses. However, spirituality has become so trivial, so banal, that it seems that many people are unaware or disregard the consequences of not placing any limits whatsoever in spirituality. I think a balance must be created. And mind you, in terms of cartoon characters becoming spiritual and people literally putting these figures of Pokemons in their altars and worshipping these figures, I'm not sure if this is, I mean, if indeed there should be a limit in spirituality, because while everything becomes spiritual, then nothing is spiritual, or if this is me failing to understand that or to grasp that in the spiritual way, because I too have limitations in a lot of things, including in spiritual terms. But as I was saying, a balance must be created, I think. It can neither be gatekeeping spirituality, but it cannot also be a limitless wasteland of madness. Otherwise, it falls into a state of nothingness, because if everything is possible, then nothing is meaningful anymore, because indeed it takes away the meaning behind our spiritual efforts. For instance, why would love be important if anyone already knew what love is and how to easily get it and throw it away? Why would anything have importance and meaning if we simply can have it? There is danger when people gatekeep spirituality, because we all become slaves to the same conceptions, and then there's no evolution and no one questions things in order to reach a better understanding of existence. And there's also danger in the limitlessness of spirituality, because it leads to such a dull state of the spiritual that nothing else has a spiritual meaning anymore. If something is easily given to us, we cannot possibly understand the importance of it, because the effort to obtain it and to understand it wasn't built in us, because it was simply given to us. We, in Europe, have seldom questioned the importance of water nowadays, because we open the tap in our kitchen or in the bathroom and water just falls. But people who live in areas areas of the planet where water is scarce, they understand its value and importance and how meaningful it is to life. Or electricity. Today, it is such a privilege and comfort to turn on the switch at our home and there's light. But I still remember back in the village, in the past, of course, where it was mostly the light of candles and the fireplace. And before that, how important it was to our ancestors to domesticate or to pass through the process of the domestication of fire and light. Now, with the click of the switch, we have light, and people stopped asking why or understanding the importance of it and how useful and what a privilege it is to have these commodities. When it is given to us, we don't ask much about it, and it becomes trivial and meaningless, right? But I do understand why we have come to this point of turning spirituality into such a trivial thing. It has been centuries and centuries of spiritual hunger. There's been religious authorities that have robbed people of their freedom of spiritual expression. There's been colonialism. There's been world wars, authoritarian regimes. There's been the slavery of accepting agreed upon conceptions that puts us in a shallow, zombified state. So, of course, when given the opportunity to finally be free to experience something, people take it to extremes and there isn't a balance. It's like when people are thirsty and they finally find a glass of water and drink it all, disregarding the consequences of the possibility of not finding any more glasses of water or any water and reach the state of thirst again. Spiritual hunger leads people to fervently and without measure wanting to try all of it and take it all without any balance, and then reaching a state of exhaustion or banality. However, this seemingly collective psychosis and meaningless state of spirituality is something that always happens and needs to happen whenever a society is robbed of the spiritual. It is understandable. The state of creativeness is what lies in between madness and brilliance. A society is the gathering of individual thoughts and experiences assembled to form a community. A community is a living organism which gathers the thoughts and experiences of each individual of the community, creating this entity that is expressed by all these spirits, having a spirit of its own. Everything that has a spirit needs experiences in order to evolve. Without experiences, it stagnates, right? But with overwhelming experiences, it enters in a state of madness, which can either rewind the process of evolution or, through a state of balance, which is formed by patience, endurance, determination, commitment, dedication, devotion, responsibility, sensibility, rationality, it can continue to evolve and become better. Our society currently lies in a state of madness, spiritually speaking, but not just. It's not something necessarily bad, mind you, but it is a case to take caution and to be patient, right? As I said, this is what happens when a society is robbed of spirituality and for too long is a slave to religious dogmas that further imprisons people in a state of spiritual stagnation. Right now, we have reached a state out of hand in many ways, but also spiritually speaking. It may indeed get worse, but it is necessary, right? Sometimes to reach enlightenment, one has to pass through madness and devour ourselves from within and fall into ruins in order to have a rebirth, rebuilding from the ashes. And ruins is the fate of all empires. And right now we live within too many empires. When things start to fall, there will be a lot of sacrifices and there will be a lot of madness. Things will eventually crumble. And the same thing happens with the spiritual state of our collective. It may seem like spiritual madness right now, psychosis, and all too trivial, too dull, more of the same, we are being bombarded by the same speeches and the same spiritual coaching programs and the same services, the same type of talk and approach and the same subjects. But this is perfectly natural. Spirituality reaches a state of stagnation and a state of tediousness, boredom, and insipid, meaningless, monotonous waste. If we are to indeed evolve spiritually as a society, this current state and process has to happen before things become clearer and the pieces put together in order to form a far more comprehensive and reasonable and compassionate understanding of spirituality in a collective way. A society is a living organism and of many thoughts and experiences, and if it takes time, quite a lot of time, for a single individual to reach a spiritual state of wisdom, peace, and balance, it takes even more for a whole society to reach that point. And I think many indigenous societies have already reached that point, especially animistic ones. The so-called Western society has, unfortunately, long abandoned an animistic perception of things for a variety of reasons, from colonialism to religious authoritarianism, loss of hope and fear due to wars and several political and economic crises, etc. I truly believe animism is the answer for much of our problems, especially spiritually speaking, which then has its positive effects on everything else, as an animistic perception is the inclusion of the spiritual in the mundane. And there's really no division between the mundane and the spiritual, because the spiritual lies in the everyday experiences of life. Our Western society has to pass through the madness before the rediscovery of the most sensible and rational form of existence, which is the abandonment of the illusion that the spiritual is either apart from the mundane or that it has to be included in the mundane. The spiritual is already included in life. It is part of life. It is part of it. But you and I, and many of us, we are still to find that balance in a way that we can better comprehend that it is not a question of everything being spiritual, but we live with it, within it, all around. And we have to find the perception where it is absolutely unquestionable that we live in the spiritual. It is part of the experience of life, as the experience of life itself is spiritual. We have to find the ways in which to apply this in our society, as many of our political organisms and the foundations of our societies, unfortunately, do not allow such perceptions to be better understood and evolve, as things are built to create a clear perception over the material that can be consumed to satisfy the illusions of the needs we have as a consuming organism, living to devour and dominate, instead of living for the sake of experiencing life itself in its fullness. And many people say that the system is not working and must be changed, but the system is working precisely for the thing it has been created for. So the system must not be changed, the system must be destroyed. So it takes time. It will take time. This state of spirituality we are currently witnessing, of a collective psychosis, is perfectly natural, understandable, and predictable, which is why our efforts will bear fruits eventually. What has come will come again. Just the same way the cycles of nature influence us on deep levels of existence, the cycles of a society inevitably also influence our existence and perception. So, my dear friends, I do hope I could deliver some words of reassurance. I am not an authority in the spiritual. I don't want to be, never wanted it. And it is healthier for me and you to stop seeing people as spiritual authorities. We have much knowledge and experiences to share with one another. And that's part of growth at all levels. No one has the authority over the spiritual. The spiritual, much like anything in life, has to be experienced and lived with the freedom of creativity that can maintain a sense of meaning and maintain the joy of experiencing existence. My dear friends, thank you so much for watching. See you on the next video. And as always, thank you for today. Until we meet again, my dear friends.